Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foundations. Today is all about mapping out your career transition. My name is Michelle Gabry, and I'll walk you through the next hour and a bit with today's session. First of all, the objective for today's session will be to provide you with the tools to present your best side to your networking contacts as well as to potential employers. We're going to look at how to utilize results from various assessment tools that you may have already completed or will be completing to build your key service offerings. We're going to look at how the CCO mindset is going to help you in today's world, and with that, the brand or your unique offering. And then the agenda will look like this. We're going to look at your leaving story. So in other words, we're going to go backwards before jumping forward. We're going to look at this idea of who am I, develop this idea of a CCO approach to your job search, tie that in, of course, with shifting paradigms in the marketplace, with branding, in other words, your competitive edge, your career capital, as well as planning your approach and putting it all into action. When it comes to this change that you've embarked upon, this career transition, for some of you it's going to be easier than others. For others it's going to be more difficult. For most of us, though, it is both. So it's really important that as you move forward through this process, that you have some tools in your bag to help you cope with the ups, with the downs. So as far as keeping positive and motivated, here are a few key tips. Talk to your family, friends, and coworkers. Let them know what you're doing. Do that sooner rather than later. Create your own advisory board, your own support group. Google different groups in your neighborhood. I know that in some areas in the Southern Ontario example, there's happen.ca, there's Meetup, which is across the country, all kinds of different ideas, different groups that you may want to take advantage of as far as a support or advisory group. Look for ways to help. Work, community, volunteer, hang out with your cheerleaders. These are the chicken soup people, the positive people in your life. Ask for help and accept it when it's offered. Certainly speak to a financial advisor. Start networking. Attend functions. Join associations. Get out there. Be present. Stay active. Offer to help. Keep organized with a to-do list. Use Knightsbridge, use the services, use our webinars, and most of all, stay positive and have fun on what can sometimes be a rather crazy roller coaster. Here's the thing. When you commit to a new beginning, when you commit to new understandings, new values, new attitudes, new identities, success will follow. We have seen it time and time again. Now, before we can really begin to commit to this new beginning, it is important that we go backwards. We take a look at our leaving story. This is essentially the what do you say when someone says to you, so how's work, or why are you no longer with ABC Company? First and foremost, you want to state what happened. You want to talk in terms of the business rationale behind the changes. Answer the question directly. Maybe the position was eliminated or outsourced or changed or impacted due to a reorganization, cost reduction, a change in fit. Be strategic about your language. In other words, keep it positive, and certainly always mention if other people have been affected by similar restructurings in the past. Other things you'll want to do. You'll want to comment positively. This is really important. Comment positively about your last role. Share what it is you enjoyed, whether it was the team, the product, the company itself, your boss, whatever it might have been. Share what you enjoyed. Comment positively about the future. So you're going to comment positively about the past and then comment positively about the future as well. Be clear about what you're doing right now and how you feel about what you'll be doing in the future. Let them know that you are excited. Maybe right now you're researching target companies, assessing interests and values, networking with others. The most important thing here is that you must be positive. You absolutely must be positive. This leaving story often sets the tone for everything else, whether it's in an interview or networking in general. It sets the tone as far as how people will perceive you going forward. So let's take a look at a few examples. Now, these examples are all written out like a script. Here's what I strongly suggest for each of you. Rather than writing it as a script, because you might sound like a telemarketer, SPO this thing. In other words, write it out, script it, but script it in bullets. Script it in bullets. That's going to help you not sound memorized. Practice this thing. Practice this thing until you own it, until you can shift it, change it, and modify it depending on where you're using it. So script it, practice it, and then own it. Let's take a look at a sample. So, how's work? Well, actually, I'm not working at ABC Company anymore. You may have heard that there have been quite a few changes in the industry. With the economy on its recent downturn, the company just had a really hard time keeping up with the competition. Therefore, they made some staffing changes, and with that, my role was impacted along with 10 others. You know, I really had a great 8 years with them, and I look at this as an opportunity to find a new challenge where I can leverage the experience I've gained. And then you would carry on, let the conversation evolve. So a few things to keep in mind with this. First of all, give us the business reason. In this case, there were quite a few changes in the industry, and the economy was on a downturn. The company had a hard time keeping up. Therefore, staffing changes. With that, my role was impacted. Notice it's not I was fired, I was let go. It's my role was impacted, and in this case, along with 10 others. And then the positive close. You know, I really had a great 8 years with them, and I look at this as an opportunity. It's a very positive, short leaving story, and that's what you want. Now, I've had some people say to me, you know, Michelle, I cannot say that I had a really great 8 years. The last couple of years were really quite awful. You want to be honest when you're telling this leaving story. You can say, overall, I had a great 8 years. Now, the last couple of years were a bit challenging with all of the shifts and changes going on within the company. However, overall, it was great, and I look at this as an opportunity. That's the first example. Now, this second example that we'll look at, this might be more of a formal, in an interview. So, tell me about yourself. Why did you leave your last company? Well, ABC Company has undergone a number of organizational changes over the last few years, and they've regularly been redefining roles based on the changes. In my most recent role, they now needed someone with a stronger technical background. I don't have that kind of technical background they needed, nor do I have a passion for that sort of work. Therefore, my role was impacted. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with them over the past 15 years, and I'm really proud of the team that I built. Frankly, the timing is perfect, as it's given me the opportunity to pursue a new challenge and a role that allowed me to focus on my key areas of expertise, namely sales and customer service. In fact, after having met with a few of your colleagues, I believe that my skill set could be a great match to meet your current business needs. So this one's a little longer, a little bit more detail. Same sort of formula, though. We talk about the business rationale, number of organizational changes, and in this case, redefining roles. So it's important to explain, well, why didn't you just morph into that new role? In this case, they needed someone with a stronger technical background. This particular person didn't have the background, nor did they have a passion for that sort of work. Therefore, my role was impacted. Now here again, it's important to say I really enjoyed my time with them, and I'm proud. Pull out the pom-poms. I'm proud of the team that I built. Frankly, the positive close. Timing is perfect, as it's given me the opportunity to pursue a new challenge, a role that will allow me to focus on and then share your key areas. This could be a great match to meet your current business needs. So very positive, gives the business rationale, and then moves on. Another example, so this is where the role was redefined. Third example is where there just isn't a fit. Now this is sometimes the trickier the trickier leaving story, because this is really more about working styles and personality styles. So it's really important that you start this leaving story with something very positive. Overall, I had a wonderful 8 years with ABC and was recognized as a specialist in my field. During the past year, there was a change in management, and along with that, a shift in management style from one of a strong team environment to one of more autonomy. While I enjoy working independently and taking ownership, the biggest changes were in the lack of any support when needed, as well as in the sense of collaboration that one gets from a team setting. Accordingly, after much consideration, it was determined that my role in the company was no longer required. I appreciate the need for change, and I'm really excited about finding something new and rewarding that will fit with my personality and service offerings. So you can see this is a little bit of a trickier leaving story because we are talking about style, and it is important. I cannot stress this enough, how important it is to talk in terms of style. Don't label the previous management. They were a micromanager. They were a macromanager. Don't do that. Talk in terms of style. You can say they had a macro management style, they had a micromanagement style, and then explain what that style was. Furthermore, explain why that doesn't work for you. In this example, it was really important for the person to say, you know what, I enjoy working independently. I really do. I enjoy taking ownership. Here's where the issue was. The issue was when there was support, when support was needed, I should say. This was the problem. When support was needed, it wasn't there. Collaboration, it wasn't there. So this is where you want to explain what the issue was. And then you go on to positive again. I appreciate the need. This piece here, I appreciate the need for change, really shows a great deal of professional maturity, and that is what your next employer is going to be looking for. We all understand change in management, change in fit. It's how you handle that change and fit. And then this sometimes follows your answer. Now, especially those answers where, might be just your role impacted, or it might be just you, a couple of you. It's why were you singled out? Why were you singled out? Well, the truth is there simply was not a fit. What I'm passionate about is ABC. This job primarily involved doing X, Y, Z. As a result, my relationship with my manager was somewhat strained. Frankly, I understand why they made the decision. I had actually already begun to start planning my next move, so the timing was quite good. Overall, it was a good experience, but now I'm excited and energized to start in a new environment and utilize my expertise as an individual contributor rather than as a people leader, for this example. So this is the case if in fact it's sort of that same fit idea, but where you were singled out. It wasn't just a change in role, it wasn't just a change in management, there's just not a fit. So you need to explain and be honest. It's perfectly fine to say that your relationship was somewhat strained. That happens. It happens in business. It's really important to follow up with, I understand. I understand why they made the decision, and I am excited and energized to start in a new environment. Be very positive. That's what we're talking about, short, sweet, and positive. So here are some common mistakes and tips for success when it comes to your leaving story. First of all, mistakes. Saying you disagree with the company's decision. Really? Were you sitting around that boardroom table? How do you know? Do you understand the backroom conversation? Probably not. Or saying, you don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why. Don't go there. Go with the business reason you were given. Don't lay blame on someone or speak ill. That's a huge red flag for a company if you start blaming or name-calling or saying they made a terrible mistake. Don't let your body language betray you. Don't be sitting there all frowning with your arms crossed while you're saying, yeah, overall I had a great 8 years. No, you didn't. We can tell. And do not ever provide too much detail, because dollars to donuts, providing too much detail is going to lead you into the laying blame or saying you disagree. Don't do that. Tips then for success, as mentioned already, keep your answer honest, short, and positive. Discuss with your references the message that will be given. This is especially important if it was an issue of fit or a change in role. Call HR, call your references and say, from what I understand, this is what I'm going to say when I'm asked why I'm no longer with ABC Company. Is this similar to what you would be saying if you're called? Find out. Maintain eye contact. Show pride in the work that you did. This is the time to pull out your pom-poms. And I cannot stress this enough, practice. Practice your leaving story. So script it in bullets so you don't memorize it. Practice it until you own this thing. That's what we're talking about. And that's an effective leaving story. And in itself, it's the foundation. It's part of that foundation for your job search. All right, let's move on. Now that you're comfortable with how to tell the story of your past, it's time to jump into the future. And your future is in sales. What are you selling? You. Ta-da! If I had fireworks, I'd let them go right now. You. So before we sell anything, before we sell any product, in this case you, it's important that we understand clearly what are our features and benefits. You are the product in today's marketplace. You are the capital. It's really important to understand your features and benefits. So let's begin to know ourselves. How do we do that? Well, I'll tell you, if you haven't already taken advantage of some of our self-assessments on Corrigos, you'll find it right here on the main dashboard under assessments. I strongly encourage you, take advantage of this. Through the self-assessments, you're going to be able to determine, maybe confirm for you, maybe to send you in a slightly different direction. Think about other things. You're going to find out or confirm values. What are your key motivators? What are the key environments in which you'll thrive? Take a look at the self-assessments. Review some of your performance appraisals, your performance reviews. These will help really trigger, oh yes, I remember that project. I love doing that type of work. And actually, hand in hand with that, reflect back on your favorite and least favorite jobs. What was it that you loved? What was it that you really didn't like and hope not to do again? A great thing is to always solicit feedback. Get feedback from people you know well, people with whom you worked in the past, people, even your friends, your family. Get some feedback from them. Ask them to describe you. What would you say about me as a professional, from what you know? And then certainly reflect on your accomplishments. Really think about what is it that you did. Once you've done that, it's going to really help you find that perfect match. So you start off by knowing yourself. That's first and foremost. Know yourself. After you know yourself, start doing some homework. Understand what's going on out there currently in the market. What are some future talent needs that my business, my team, my industry, in other words, might require? Understand things like managers' goals, team goals, organization strategies, visions, organizations' current challenges in the marketplace. And then, as far as your value goes, figure out where are the gaps. What can you really capitalize on in terms of need, what they need? How can you personally contribute to this team, to this department, and meet those expectations? Have conversations with others around you and around your value added. That's what we're talking about. Once you do this little bit of homework, know yourself, understand what's out there, and that means doing homework, doing research. And if you haven't attended one of our research webinars, you might want to. I'm going to make a little note for you. You may want to actually attend one of our research webinars to sort of set you on track as far as how do I understand what's going on in the marketplace currently. And then, of course, you'll be able to figure out where can I transition my skills to take advantage of that. At the end of this whole process, at the end, you will have a snapshot of who you are, what you want others to remember about you. Think about it this way. Do you have 5 key words or phrases that describe you? Maybe one of those phrases or word groupings will be your title, Quality Assurance Specialist, and then other things that you're creative, strong leadership, analytical, you're a team player. 5 key words or phrases, because right now on the line, I could have, listening today, I could have 2 office administrators, 2 project managers, 2 sales and marketing execs. I could have healthcare workers. I could have teachers. I could have anybody. I could have someone working in manufacturing. But no 2 people are the same. So it's important that you think, how am I going to differentiate myself? How am I going to describe myself? This kind of thing is something that you will, in fact, and if you've already done the resume webinar, you'll probably already have a good start on this. You'll build it into your profile for your resume. This is also something that you'll use when answering the question. So tell me about yourself. So think of this as essentially the start of your branding, and we'll get to branding in just a moment. All right, so from there, knowing what you are, knowing what you have to offer, your key features, your key benefits, it's time to put all this to work. First things first, we need to create a company. That company begins with you. As of today, as of right now, you are your own Chief Career Officer. This is a new way of thinking about your career and about conducting your search. You need to think in terms of finance, marketing, HR, and sales. So let's go. The CCO mindset, what is it? Well, you've just been promoted as mentioned. You are the CCO. Your role is to sell your services. Your role is to run your career as a business. How do we do that? Well, it requires homework, like any good business. You're going to analyze the marketplace to develop strategies. You're going to determine what separates you from the pack. In other words, you're going to define your brand. You're going to create a game plan with goals. And not just the goals. We're all terrific at setting goals. I'm going to get on that treadmill 3 times a week. Well, okay, how many, like me, have a treadmill in their basement that makes a pretty handy-dandy clothes dryer for hanging clothes? No, you have to just not only set the goals, but have measures of success. You also need to promote your brand to prospective clients and to manage your brand effectively. We're going to get to that branding piece shortly. So, when it comes to running your business, this is how we want you to think of this. Run your career as a business, it means looking at usual things in unusual ways. Looking at usual things in unusual ways. For example, from now on, as of today, think of this as my job right now is to source new opportunities. It's not about me. I am going to focus the spotlight on what they require, what is needed out there. In fact, as of today, you are not a job seeker. You are a provider of business solutions. That's who you are. Pretty powerful stuff. I'm a provider of business solutions. This is what I do. This is how I can meet your business needs. So that in itself is a shift in how you need to run your career. And as part of that career, this job search. I want to expand a little bit on the looking at things in unusual ways, because we're going to get into in a moment different ways that most people find work. But I want to pause here for a second and talk about some of the more unusual mindsets. unusual things. Most people will look at agencies and ads and do all of that good stuff, which is important. We'll talk about it. But from an unusual perspective, this is what I want you to do. Be open, be flexible. I want you to read the newspaper. And when you're reading that newspaper, I want you to read it for opportunities. And I'll give you a quick example of a client of mine. She was in environmental studies, environmental work, I should say. Her company had closed, so she was looking for work here in London, Ontario. We're a pretty small market. She read in the paper a story, a news story about the City of London was looking to hire an environmental company to do a year-long assessment on our current parks and recreation. So normally she would just say, oh, wow, that would be great. That sounds exciting. Instead, she thought opportunity. What did she do? She contacted the person quoted from the environmental company. She introduced herself. She said, you know, I understand that you've just started work with the City of London. You're taking on this contract. This is my background. I'd love to come in and share with you. And if you've done any networking webinars, you know that it's not asking for a job. It's sharing. Share with you some of the things that I picked up along the way, and I'd love to learn more about your company and this project. Well, lo and behold, hired. She was hired as a part of that year-long assessment. Why? Because she looked for opportunities. I have a lot of stories about that. We're not going to go into them all here. And it's sometimes as simple as keeping your ears and eyes open. One of my clients was a manager of warehouse facilities. His closed. He was in a Tim Hortons in the Halton area. He heard that they were building a new warehouse for Timmy's. He asked to speak to the super. Super put him in contact with head office. Hired before that warehouse was even constructed. So this is what I mean. Look at things in an unusual way. So that means approach the job search when it comes to looking for opportunities. Look in a different and unusual way, and never lose sight of the fact that you are a provider of business solutions. All right. Looking at this idea of looking at things in an unusual way, we're even going to take it from your own past career. For example, over time, think about how has your own industry rippled? How has your own career rippled? How and where do you see these ripples affecting your job search, your search for new opportunities? How is this going to change? How is this change going to create your next initiative? In other words, how might you look at change in a new or unusual way? And this is actually a really cool piece of homework. Think about when you first started on the job, no matter what your role was. Think about how did that change? How did my own role change over the years? What kind of technology crept in that changed my role? How did that shift and change my career? If you start thinking that way, chances are that's going to springboard you forward as far as, I wonder, this is where things are going now. And so that can help you create your next initiative. All of these changes, considering all of these ripples, these changes, will really help you understand the shifts and changes in the job market itself. Consider the following, these shifting paradigms. When it comes to industries, you're probably all well aware that we've moved very much into a high-tech, knowledge-based industries. Knowledge-based work, lots of mergers and acquisitions and outsourcing, lots of increasing regulations. Think about how am I moving along and within these changing industries. What now are they looking for? I'll tell you, it was interesting. One of my clients, this is a few years ago now, but in recognizing that industries were changing so much, he actually went back to school, if you will, and his role is now in the world of regulations. Why? Because of all these increasing regulations. Think about when ISO 1000 came out. or whatever the number was for your particular industry. That was brand new. That opened up a floodgate of ISO regulators out there. Enron, forensic accounting, that exploded after the whole Enron disaster. So think about what's changing, what's happening, how might I change with it? Organizations, let's move to that. We have all kinds of sophisticated customers out there and constantly changing work environments. Nothing stays the same, as we all are well aware of. We have this decentralization and project team structured, meaning if you start with ABC company in one department, in the past it used to be if your work wrapped up or a project wrapped up in that department, you would simply move into and morph into the next department, the next work. We know that's not what happens anymore. Each department is almost run like its own island, connected by bridges. So it's important for you that you understand this often means shorter term contracts. It often means that you need to be more flexible in your roles and locations even. You need to start networking with all of the different departments because they all tend to work alone now. So even within a company you need to network, and you have to be willing to take on more complex work. You have to be willing to grow, grow your skill set. It might mean upgrading your technical skills. It may mean relocating or changing industry, and it may mean that you consider consulting contract roles. Now, the nice thing that's going on in the market, yes, consulting contract role is still a big way that many employers hire, but they are rolling back to what it used to be. I remember when I was recruiting 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we would hire a lot of people on contracts, 3-month, 6-month contracts, and roll them right into full-time after that. Over the recessions, what happened was there was a bit of a shift. We talk about this shift again. And what would happen is we would still hire people on contract, but rather than roll them immediately into full-time, what we would often do is extend contracts. And then at some point when things stabilize, we would roll them into full-time. So that's something that is happening. That's something that's going on. You might have experienced something similar in your own industry, or maybe something quite different. Being aware is the most important thing so that you know how to react and be proactive. Now, one of the neat things that I always ask people to do, my own clients, is create a bit of a template, if you will. Using the CCO mindset, think about how your skills meet the needs of the business, of the industry, the role. Think about what are the key skills that they are looking for from a business, people, and personal skills. Put it down on a chart. Employer skills here are in blue. And then pinpoint where are you on that scale, on that sliding scale. Is it something you might need to improve upon? If you're over to the far left and they need someone over to the far right with more of the right, well, that's going to dictate for you where you need to increase your skill set. This is especially true if you are looking to change careers. So if any of you are looking to change direction, whether it's changing industry or doing a complete shift and changing your roles, do some homework. Figure out what is it that you bring to the table, identify those strengths, and then benchmark them against, okay, what does the employer need for this particular role in this particular industry? That's going to help you not only define your brand, but it's going to help you really focus and target where you need to concentrate on building your skills or shifting or translating your past experience to this newer experience. All right, we're going to give you a business plan now for your CCO mindset. These are some company activities because, as mentioned, this webinar, it really is about, I'm not sure if I mentioned, it's about giving you an efficient and effective job search tool bank. And part of that is understanding some company activities. So here we go. Marketing. When you think of marketing yourself, your services, your product, first thing you need to do is put it down in writing. So look at your resume, your cover letters. Think of how you brand yourself. Research. What is it you know? What kind of research have you done out there around the industry, the company, around yourself, maybe through those assessments and through networking? Sales and promotion. Of course, this is where we get out there and we start interviewing and networking. Training. You're doing training right now. You're attending a webinar. This is all part of your company activity. Finance. You may need to or want to speak to a financial advisor. How do you plan this, your personal finances to carry you over? How do you create a budget for yourself? And then lastly, of course, is the administrative side. Every company has its administrative side, and this is where you're setting your goals, you're planning, and you're organizing. Big thing here, though, is to take action. Make it happen. Do not buy the treadmill that sits in your laundry room like I do. Make it happen. This is actually a really cool, you can create whatever you want, create a template, a spreadsheet, whatever you want. But this is very effective, I found, when I've been working with different clients, because it does sort of give them an anchor. Okay, how am I going to approach my whole job search? Because goodness knows it can be very overwhelming. So start being able to check off the stuff you've done. Okay, I've already put together my resume. I'll tailor it going down the road, but I already have a good template. I have a good template, and I understand my branding, which I'll tweak along the way depending on the role. I've done research. So this, again, it gives you a bit of a benchmark, something so that you can measure, you can monitor, and that's the same when it comes to this interviewing networking piece. You want to keep track. All right, I've talked a lot about branding as far as I've brought the word branding up. Let's jump into how and what is branding. How do we do it? What's the purpose? Why are we bothering? Now, brands, by definition, it's a name, a sign, or a symbol that identifies the goods and services of one seller and differentiates them from another. When you think of it from your perspective, branding, it's not about getting your target market. It's not about getting the hiring manager to choose you over your competition. It's about getting the hiring manager to see you as the only one who provides a solution to their problem. Remember, going into these meetings, writing these resumes, you're writing them from the perspective that you are a provider of business solutions. That's what we're talking about here. Now, branding, really, in a nutshell, it is a promise to deliver. A brand statement takes it one step further. It's a statement of the qualities and value added that you offer clients. Now, when we think of brands, I'm going to put a couple of brands up here on the screen. Tim Hortons, coffee and baked goods. Starbucks, coffee and baked goods. Both companies do basically the same thing. They sell coffee and baked goods. How differently they brand themselves. First of all, when you think Tim Hortons, you might think, okay, well, it's reasonably priced coffee. You might think to yourself, you might think of their tagline, always fresh. You might think of all their community endeavors, Timbits Hockey, the summer camps, and you might even think they're on every corner for everybody. Starbucks sells coffee, very similar to Tim Hortons. However, how they market themselves, very different. For starters, probably most of you will agree, their coffee is expensive. Secondly, it's more the experience when you go to Starbucks. They have lovely environments with comfy chairs. They have baristas making your coffee. So it's more of an experience thing. You might also think when it comes to Starbucks, you might think fair trade because that's something they really promote. So they both sell the same thing, but look how differently they promote themselves. Just like on the line as mentioned, I could have two of you who are accountants. I could have two of you who are electricians. I could have two of you who are executive HR managers. Two of you on the line, essentially the same kind of work, but how you brand yourself will be night and day. Even airlines. We're putting up WestJet here because when WestJet came along, they really branded themselves as something different. These are the people who say to you, WestJet, because owners care. Every employee of WestJet is an owner of WestJet, and their entire platform is around that service because owners care. I have yet to see Air Canada say even once, we care. So it's a very different experience. Now this is branding around products, things. Around people, you bet, and this is where you fall in. Okay, everybody, love him or hate him, this is the Donald Trump. And as mentioned, you can love him, you can hate him, but he has very carefully branded himself. The Donald. When you think of the Donald, you might think of really bad hair. You might think of You're Fired if you were a fan of The Apprentice. You might think of all of his products. You might think of his properties. He's big into real estate. Lots and lots of money. He makes lots and lots of money. Oh, sorry, my typing right now. Lots and lots of money. So that's what you might think, love or hate. That's what you might think of when you think of the Donald. Oprah, this is another. We sort of pulled a bit of a comparison here. Who would be comparable to a Donald as far as influence? Well, like Donald, she makes lots and lots of money. Like Donald, she has lots of products. Her TV shows, OWN, her magazine. Different things that we think about when we think of Oprah, though, are things like her charity. Her charity work, her schools that she builds. We might think of her as perhaps even a little bit more humble, or certainly she had more humble beginnings. So different things spring to mind, both very successful and influential people. Some people love them, some people hate them. Closer to home, think about our own Wayne Gretzky. Wayne, when he burst on the scene with the Edmonton Oilers, number 99, that was his brand. Wayne has cultivated that brand. He has very carefully monitored and measured his brand over the years. His brand, his number, 99, is a part of everything he does, whether it's his charities, his Wayne Gretzky Foundation and all the charities it supports, whether it's his wine, which is actually very good, I'll have you know. It's all 99. So this is more like yourself. Think about when you started. How did you evolve over time? Think about this and think about when it comes to developing your own brand. Right now, today, what are you known for? Importantly, what are you telling people about yourself? More importantly, what are you not telling people about yourself that you should be telling them? Who are you? What do you do? How do you do it? What makes you unique? Remember those 5 key words or phrases. This is always a really interesting exercise that I ask my own clients to do. Go home tonight, so when you're done listening to this, tonight, or at some point over the next couple of days when you're out with your friends, your family, ask them, how would you describe what it is I do for a living? How would you describe my work? How would you describe me personally? How would you describe me professionally? I am sure some of you are going to be very surprised at who they think you are. And it might be a positive. Excellent. I didn't know you saw me that way. That's fantastic. Build that into your brand. Or it might be, really? You think I'm like that? You think I'm too quiet? Or you think I'm really pushy? And that's something you might want to adjust when you're developing this brand. Now, when it comes to brand, when it comes to the CCO mindset and brand, write this down. Do this again. So here's another tool. Write down your statement, your Chief Career Officer statement, which is your brand philosophy, essentially. I am President and CEO of, put your name in there, I'll use my own, of Michelle Inc. My service offering is, name it. My target audience is, name it. My differentiating factor is, and then name that. Now, here's the thing. For some of you on the line, you probably have, well, gee whiz, more than one service offerings. If I use myself as an example, I consider myself having 3 different service offerings. One is career transition work. That's what I'm doing right now with you today. Another hat that I wear is my recruitment hat. This is when I'm out there helping companies do their hiring. And another hat that I wear is I teach. I teach at Fanshawe College. I teach business communications, of which this is a big part of it. Depending on who I am talking to, depending on my audience, that's the brand statement that I will pull out, whether it's career transition, whether it's recruitment, whether it's teaching. And that as well, that will be where I pull out my differentiating factors. So something that makes me a little different or unique, I think. That's what I'm going to pull this out. Now, when I'm just generally networking, when I go to some of our Business After 5 meetings or I go to our Chamber of Commerce meetings, heck, I'll throw all 3 service offerings in my mix because I want to give everyone a general overview. So really, if I look at my own brand statements, and for some of you this will be exactly the same thing, I essentially have 4. I have these 3 separate and distinct, depending on my audience, as well as my overall general. Again, depending on my audience. So really think about this. Think about it. And perhaps even come up with your own tagline that you will use perhaps on the bottom of all of your emails. From builder to solutions provider, or I know that sounds corny, but something along that line, something that really helps define you and makes you really be mindful of who you are and what you're offering. All right, so here's the thing to remember. Having a personal brand is not optional. You all have a brand right now. As soon as you start asking people, what do you think of me? Who do you think I am on the job personally? How would you describe me? They're already telling you, you have a brand that you're putting out there. Managing it is optional. And this is something you absolutely don't want to leave up to someone else. A lot of people don't bother to manage their own personal brand, and next thing you know, what's being put out there is not at all what you thought or hoped or wanted to be put out there. So tips to start branding yourself. Well, certainly you're going to start by knowing what it is you have to offer. So that's step 1. Know who your audience or audiences is or are. Know who your competition is, and think about your digital personal brand actions. We live in a digital world now. So make sure everything from your email signature, make sure your name is in it, Michelle Gabory at whatever it might be, or M. Gabory at first initial, last name. Have a professional email signature. Have a professional voicemail. So this is not the time to have the little kids answering, having the voice message or the dogs barking in the background. Professional voicemail. Think about creating a web portfolio or a blog for that matter, or a blog, a professional blog, so that when you are Googled, and you will be Googled, your name crops up as far as, oh, look at this, they're a professional project manager. Let's see what they have to say on their portfolio. Ping your network regularly. In other words, keep people in the loop. Let them know what you're doing, what you've been reading, what's going on. Do Google yourself. Find out if you're out there, and find out what is online. You may want to try and shift and change and put yourself out there if you're not out there. Are you on LinkedIn? This is something that you may want to look at. We, in fact, have, oh, I'm sorry, I did that too quickly. We, in fact, have a number of LinkedIn webinars that you might want to take advantage of. We have LinkedIn for beginners. We have LinkedIn Advanced. This might be something worthwhile for you, as it is and has been, since its inception really, the #1 online recruitment and networking tool worldwide. So recruitment and networking, it can be really effective. So you may want to consider LinkedIn as an option to get yourself out there. You can check out one of our webinars for that. All right. Now moving on, we're going to look at how to plan our approach. So we have the tools, we know how to run a business, we have our CCO mindset. Let's now look at your approach. When you think about how employers find people, essentially it comes down to around these 8, 9 different ways. It's through networking, alumni, word of mouth. That's sort of the same as networking. Internal postings, agencies, on campus, ads, associations, job fairs. When you think about the top three ways that employers find people, what springs to mind? What do you think? If you thought networking, you're absolutely right. And again, I kind of tie networking in a little bit with word of mouth. It really is the same thing. It's talking to people. If you thought agencies and recruiters, you're absolutely right. And if you thought ads, you again are absolutely right. These are the top 3 ways that employers find people. The others are good, but these are the 3 primary. How many of you have heard of the 80-20 rule in reference to how most employers find people? When you think of the 80-20 rule, it breaks down like this. 80%, 8 out of 10 people will find their next piece of work through networking, Ads and agencies, that'll be 2 out of 10. So very worth your while looking at ads and agencies. However, it's networking, it's that hidden job market, that's the golden ticket for most people. Let's talk about each one of these things. And we're going to start off by looking at ads. Pros, cons. The pros to advertisements, whether they're print or online. First of all, lots of opportunities. You can access them 24/7. You can be sitting there with your milk and cookies at night with a warm, fuzzy pair of slippers on. You can research the company. I do have a question mark. I'll come back to that in a moment. And you may not have heard of the opportunity otherwise. The cons. The cons, if you saw the ad, chances are everybody else did too. Competition can be massive. The blind ad. I'm sure that some of you have seen the blind ads, the box numbers. In that case, you're not able to follow up. In this case, you're not even able to research the company. So blind ads. Here's a tip when it comes to blind ads. If you see the same job posting over and over, week after week, chances are that's not really an actual job posting. It might be a filler posting. Chances are the job doesn't really exist. So just be mindful of how much time you spend replying to the same ad over and over. It certainly can take a long time before you hear anything, and it can be quite expensive for an employer. So some of them don't bother doing print or online. Agencies. Some of you may be looking to join an agency or a search firm. The pros, the cons. First of all, the pros. You can receive some terrific background information from that agency. You can be prepped, in other words, by the recruiter. What does this employer really look for? What are the key things? Tell me about the person interviewing me. It will get you leads you may not otherwise have had access to. It's quick. It's easy for the company that is using them. The cons. For some people, they've said that they felt pressured to take something that they really didn't want. Some others have said that they've been overlooked if they're not an exact match. You can be frustrated with the lack of return calls. When we did surveys, now this is going back quite a while, but when we had done some surveys with some search firms and agencies across the country, one of the things that consistently came up in reference to how should our clients contact you, one of the things that came up quite a few times was have them call us or contact us weekly contact. And when they do, they should attach their resume each and every time. attach the resume. Now, even if you haven't changed your resume, they've suggested attach your resume. Why? Because it puts you at the top of the pile. It lets them know you're still interested in working with them to find your next piece of work. So ask them. This is a good question if you start working with an agency or search firm. Ask them, how would you like me to stay in contact? Another con, you don't have control over your negotiations, so be very clear on what your salary range is, because once it goes to market, just like an athlete, it's the agent who sets the salary or who works at negotiating salary. They can certainly pigeonhole you. That is, they try to, it's easier for them to place you in the same kind of role that you've been in. That's called pigeonholing, putting you in the same hole. So it can be a little trickier if you're trying to change careers. Agencies don't always like to work with you from that perspective. So really make sure your resume highlights how you can easily transfer. Ethical? No, not always. That's why you want to do your homework. You want to ask them, especially ask them how they are paid. You never, ever pay out of your own pocket, and that is big. You never pay. So if you have, I should do this in a darker color because it's that important. If you are working for an agency or you're meeting with an agency and they ask you to pay to uncover this secret hidden job market, you know what? You don't walk, you run. You never pay out of your pocket. It's the company that pays. So be very careful about that. And that's where the last sort of con from a company perspective is it can be quite expensive. It can be anywhere from 5 to 30% of your starting salary. Two last words on agencies. The difference between an agency and a search firm. Some of you might be wondering. Agencies are paid on a contingency plan, meaning they get paid when you are placed. Search firms, they're called search firms, are a little different. Search firms are paid a retainer. They're paid up front to find somebody. So that might be important for you to recognize, because when it comes to agencies, they're kind of like real estate agents. You really want to be mindful of only working with maybe 2 or 3 agents at the most. Depends on the market, depends on where you are. But 2 or 3, you really want to focus on those particular agents and have them focused on you. Some people will even say you should really only work with one. Search firms, on the other hand, work with as many as you want, because here's the thing. A company is only going to pay a search firm once a retainer. They're not going to put retainers out there all over the place. Companies will only hire one search firm because of how expensive it is to pay right up front. So do this. And to tie it back to, I mentioned earlier, looking at things in unusual ways. Here we go. It stretches right over into this piece. If you know, let's say you have a company, ABC company is just a huge company on your hit list. They're like your number one of your number one companies. And you know that they use agencies. Well, my goodness, if you're going to register for that agency, find out which one they use. It could be a simple call to HR and say, I understand that ABC company uses agencies when it comes to recruitment. I'm very interested in your company, and therefore I'd like to be associated with an agency that you use. Do you mind providing me with that name? Chances are, almost every time, in my experience, they have said, absolutely, we use, great agencies or superstar agencies, whatever it might be. You might on occasion find a company that says, we're not sharing that with you. But most of the time, it shouldn't bother them at all to tell you which agencies they use. So that's looking for opportunity in unusual ways, and it even goes right here to working with agencies. All right, let's take a look at networking. Now, networking, we have an entire webinar devoted to networking. We have an entire webinar. So I am just going to go over some of the highlights as far as the pros and the cons, and I highly recommend that you sit in on the networking webinar. The pros, here we go. Low competition. You get the inside track on unadvertised. It's a great referral from the contact to refer you to that place, that person. The process is often faster because you deal direct. You can research information. Quick and confidential for the employee and employer. No money for the company unless they have a bonus referral employee plan. And it's great because it's a good referral for the company itself. Lots of pros. The cons, well, it's just not comfortable for everybody. Some of you may feel that you don't have a strong network base, and there is no question it does take time. But remember, 80-20, 80-20, 80% of all hiring happens through networking. So you really need to think about how to use this piece effectively, and that's why I again suggest for everybody, attend the networking webinar. I really do. It's so easy to go right, and it's so easy to go wrong when it comes to networking. All right, we now have an understanding of the three key, I'll call them the key, they're not the only, but the three key ways that employers find people. Let's create an action plan. Step number 1, give yourself a plan for every working day, Monday to Friday. Spend 3 hours each day, 3 hours, we're not saying 6, we're not saying 8, 3 hours every day focusing on ads, meeting with agencies, networking, 3 hours, setting up appointments, 3 hours. Out of those 3 hours, the bulk of that time should be spent on networking. Even calling up agencies, anytime you're talking, that's networking, or sending out those emails, that's networking. So count that in those 3 hours. Most of your time should be spent there. The 4th hour out of your workday, it's a 4-hour workday. 4th hour should be spent on target marketing. Pick 4 industries in which you're interested, and then research 10 companies for each industry. And don't edit. Never edit. I'm going to share one story here because this will really hit home how effective this target marketing can be. The idea is, let's say it's day 1. You're off the phone today. It's late in the day, or early in the day, let's say. So you still have 4 hours, or maybe you'll start tomorrow with the 4 hours. So your 1-hour target marketing. So maybe your first hour will be spent just picking 4 industries. Pick 4 industries, whatever you want. And I'm going to say, I'm going to use an actual example, a client of mine. So he was saying, okay, I'm in accounting, so I'm going to look at an accounting firm. I'm going to look at in-house accounting. I'm going to look at maybe self-employment. And he said, and I'm going to look at the circus. And he was throwing this out as a joke. I'm going to run away and join the circus. So we said to him, or there were a few of us in the room, this was a class actually, we said, you know what? The circus, find 10 companies, find 10 circuses, or however many you can find. Find 10 circuses. So the next day, second hour I'll call it, he started researching a number of different accounting firms. That might have been it for that one day. The next day it might have been, okay, companies with in-house accounting. That might have been it one day. And then eventually he got to the circus. Okay, what circuses are out there? So we started researching the companies, listing them, just listing the companies. And then third day, that's when he started doing research. So we picked the companies listed, let's say a couple of the companies that are circus, and he started doing homework. Well, guess where he ended up working as an accountant? He's working for the circus. He ran off and joined Cirque du Soleil as one of their accountants. Who would have guessed? He threw it out there as a joke, really. He said, I've always wanted to run off and join the circus. He's now working for Cirque du Soleil. So that's what I mean when I say don't edit. Think about your target. Pick four industries in which you are interested. Think outside of the box. Pick at least one that would just seem like it would be fun, and then start doing homework. All right. Sometimes you might have been told this from your parents when you were growing up. Eat your broccoli first, then you get your dessert. Start with the area you like least. Finish with the area you like most. Now, I'm different from that perspective because I'm not a morning person, so I need to sandwich it a bit. I need to start with something that I enjoy, that'll kickstart my brain. Then I put in what I like least, and then I finish with something else that I like. Whatever works for you. Think reverse critical path. Some of you have heard the expression, if you build it, they will come. Certainly if you watched Field of Dreams, you've heard of that expression. If you build it, they will come. This is what we're talking about when we say start with the desired result and work backwards. Let me give you an example to really clearly illustrate how this works. I'm going to go back to one of my clients again. Trojan Technologies here in London is a maker of UV light purification systems. This particular client of mine wanted to work at Trojan, his number one company in IT. Working backwards, how was he going to get there? Well, he knew he'd have to get to the hiring manager, the hiring manager of the IT department. Well, how might he get there? Well, it probably would be important or useful to meet with someone who works in IT, in that IT department. All right. How is he going to find someone who works in IT? Well, I guess I'll pretend I'm him. I need to speak to anybody who works at Trojan. Anyone who works there, I need to talk to them. It doesn't matter which department. All right. How am I going to do that? I need to talk to everyone I know. Everyone I know to see if they know anyone who works at Trojan Technology. What do I need to do before I do that? I need to make sure my resume is ready to go. And in order to do that, I better have done some research on the company and the role that I'm really hoping to fill within this company. So using this reverse critical path, I'm not kidding, within 3 months, now that might have been quite quick, I don't know. For other people it might be even sooner, for others it might take a little longer. But from step one of doing homework and seeing how it would play out, hired as an IT contractor at Trojan Technologies. And by the way, anybody who he talked to was actually the receptionist. Happened to be that a friend of his, that's the everyone, knew the receptionist of Trojan Technologies. She then put him in contact with someone with IT, who put him in contact to the hiring manager, who ultimately hired him. Reverse critical path. I love it. Build it and they will come. Okay. Other things that you're going to need to do. You need to be able to track this. Going back to that template of the actions, the marketing, the research, all of that piece, the finance, you need to have a clear tracking system of some sort. The resumes posted, the calls made, the companies contacted, the follow-up. And remember, results are measured by the number of conversations, meetings, and interviews. That's what we're talking about. Keep your date book at hand. You always want to be able to jot down whether it's new leads or follow-up calls. And don't forget to actually review. Review your progress. Review it. Make changes. Make improvements. What's working, what's not. Do this at the end of each week. Ask people for feedback. Do give yourself time off. We don't want anyone. I know myself when I went through career transition, it was hard, but I really got out of the habit of waking up every morning thinking, I need a job, I need a job. Going to bed at night, I need a job, I need a job. Time out. 4 hours a day, concentrated, effective job searching, and then time off to relax, to have fun. That doesn't mean you don't keep your eyes and ears open, but you relax. And this is especially important if you find that you're getting a little frustrated. It will show. So take some time off. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell them that, you know what, 4 hours a day is an effective and efficient time use for job searching. Other than that, I'm going to go weed the garden. I'm going to go maybe pick up a golf game here and there. But I will be networking at the same time. I'll be keeping my eyes and ears open, because you don't want your cheerleaders to be getting on your back either. So let them know your business plan. Certainly use your consultant and your networking group to cheer you on and to give you some support. All right. Remember, this is really important. When it comes to this piece, don't ever stop networking. Don't ever stop managing your brand once you've started your new job. You know, with shifting paradigms, you know how quickly things can change. We saw that when we spent some time looking at the different industries and the shift in decentralization and things like that. So always keep networking. Always make sure you're managing your brand. All right, initiatives you can start right now. Seek out that trusted advisor or mentor. Keep your skills current. Take a course. You're doing it right now. Volunteer when you're in your community. You have a little bit of time now, perhaps. Volunteer. Get out there. You never know where the next lead will come from. Participate in new initiatives and get exposure to those industries or careers in which you are interested. Get outside of the box. Get outside of what you're used to. All right, this does bring us to the end of the Foundations webinar. As you know, we have many different sessions that you can participate in, many different webinars. This is just a sampling. I'll show you where to find this on our calendar, but it's lots of different things, from how to use social media to the LinkedIn as mentioned, resumes, interviewing, so many different sessions, and I'll show you where to find that. As far as Corrigo goes, here we are. Look at where we can find this information. First of all, under Career Tools. Under Career Tools, this is where you'll find webinar instructions and slides, and in fact, you'll even find this particular slide deck right there under Slides. Look for Foundations. You'll also find our National Webinar Calendar. As mentioned, many different webinars that you can take advantage of. And lastly, assessments. Right here, top of the dashboard, can really help you with your focus, with your target, and ultimately with your branding. So, thank you very much. As far as today, think about it. Based on what you've learned from today's session, what will be your own commitment or action going forward? Will it be figuring out how to tell your leading story? Will it be figuring out what is your focus? What is your target? Hand in hand with that, will it be perhaps defining your brand? Will it be really thinking of yourself as your CCO, Chief Career Officer of your own company, looking at your job search in an unusual way? That's what we're talking about today. Remember, you are a provider of business solutions. That's who you are. That's what you do. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I wish you the best of success in moving forward. And for more information, please do go to our Corrigo site. Thank you. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.